is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback, Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's flat. He throws. It is.
Hello and welcome to this week's Past Our Prime show. We are into the first week of August, and so it makes sense that we have someone by the name of Tim Shaw coming from out of the pool on the cover of SI from 50 years ago. More on this all-time great swimmer in a bit, but first let me say hello to my two other co-hosts, Mark Hoffman and Bill Mahoney. Hey guys, how's your summer going so far?
Play dates and pools.
Well, Bill, it's hotter where Bill is than where I am. Actually, where I am, it's about 10 degrees cooler than the valley. Where Bill is, it's probably 10 degrees hotter than the valley.
But to be honest with you, this has been a very mild summer. It's only about 88 degrees right now. It's been that way for the last few days.
Great. Now you can just jinx yourself. It's going to be 105 the next week. You watch.
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
Yes,
no, but you're right. I mean, it is. I think we touched 90 like a couple times, and you know, into August, I'll take it. I
mean, I walked to the store the other night at 7 o'clock. It was almost jacket weather. It was windy and cold. Yeah.
My cat Fluffy just came back inside saying it's too hot out there.
Yeah.
It's weird because where I am in the morning, it's cool. But then around 9 o'clock, it just changes. And then about 6 o'clock, when the sun starts going down, it changes back to being cool. Yeah. But that in between, it's warm.
Yeah.
Cat's smart. And she knows I'm not staying out there in that
Mark,
heat.
you know what they call that? They call that daylight.
I'm a vampire. I wouldn't know anything about that.
You do love your vampires.
I do. Oh, real funny story.
Yeah.
So I'm so into Dexter Resurrection, and the last episode was awesome, that Mara feels I'm very disturbed that I like to watch a show about serial killing. So she's very worried for me.
You know, my wife loves the murder shows. Can't get enough murder. Murder podcasts, murder movies, murder everything. Hey, as we get to the scorecard, I wanted to ask you both, how's your cockfighting going these days?
Well, I met a couple of girls a little bit ago, but my bad.
You're canceled.
Well, Joe Zanino, ironically a funeral director from Baltimore, he loves him some cockfighting. He was asked, what's the difference between fighting dogs and fighting chickens? And he says, fighting dogs is inhumane. Roosters, on the other hand, have been bred to fight for thousands of years. Has Joe ever been arrested for cockfighting? He answered, once. The charge against was for running a disorderly house. I can tell you this. There was nothing disorderly about that house until the cops came. Then there was chaos. And I can tell you, if having a house be disorderly, I know a lot of people who would be in trouble. And finally, he was asked, where do you think your sport will be 50 years from now? And that's where we are, right? So he answers, we just want to be allowed to do what they're allowed to do in France, not anymore, in the Philippines, not anymore, in South America, and Billy, and the Virgin Islands.
Can they still do it there?
I don't know. I couldn't find that out, but I will say there's no cockfighting in Cuba. And he says, wherever communism comes in, cockfighting goes out. When communism goes out, cockfighting comes back. So there you have it. You get rid of communism, you get cockfighting.
Well, the thing is now, anything involving violence in animals, doesn't matter what the animal is taboo now. And, you know, I mean, I love animals, so I can kind of understand it, you know.
I don't think, you know, there's too many people that would be against that take, you know, like.
Does the Seinfeld episode still work then, or is that canceled?
I mean, there's a few episodes. There's a few episodes. Little Jerry?
Yeah, little Jerry. Little Jerry Seinfeld.
remember how Michael Vick got into so much trouble with the dog fighting and stuff.
Oh my gosh, right? You're just jealous of Jerry because he'll never be what he is.
Oh God.
Yep.
All right. What other
Mark has
scorecard
no
leads
idea
we
what
got?
we're talking about.
Mark?
Well, yeah, you all like to tease me about my streaking, but so this one is right up my alley. So apparently, the National Park Service banned nude bathing on the Cape Cod National Seashore this year, saying
What?
that, yep, saying now, but there are people that are upset about this. There's been about 12 people that challenged the ban. They claim that they have a constitutional right to, expose themselves.
Right.
And I know the Constitution allows us to bear arms, but I don't think it's arms, butts,
Right.
breasts, legs, and stuff like that. So a federal judge actually said, the personal right to bathe in the nude is not a significance to be considered a fundamental right. Maybe in the caveman days, yes, because we didn't have clothes really back then.
I mean,
Yeah,
Bill.
I think we did a story. I think we talked about that in one of the scorecards. The guys in Cape Cod were doing naked stuff, and people.
Right, it was in the
upset.
previous, right.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that we're challenging it, and it's like, nope.
I mean, you got to think that Mark, being a big advocate of streaking, is going to be big into skinny dipping as well.
Yes.
Oh
right?
yeah.
Mark is
I think clothes are a waste of time. What can I say?
right. Some
We know
people
that,
say
buddy.
some people say clothes optional. Not Mark. Clothes are not optional. You
I am so pale right now that I think I would blind people if I did.
Yes,
But,
yes. We don't need to hear that. All right, Bill, what do you got?
Well, I know this is big on everyone's mind, especially back in 75. But the height of Mount Everest, if you guys didn't know, is 29,028, or so we thought. Because in 1975, Peking Radio reported that a team of Chinese surveyors and geologists had determined that the altitude of Everest is actually 29,029.24 feet. So
It was another foot, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I knew it.
Yeah, I know exactly. I knew you did. I knew you'd go off on this story.
I was at base camp at about 17,000 feet, and I was like, that looks like 12,029 feet left.
Yeah,
not 12,028. And
It doesn't matter.
Screwed.
I just turned around.
It doesn't matter what the actual height is. You need an oxygen mask to breathe at that altitude. So
But Mark, the lady that I read her thing on, Ballard, she did 7 of those peaks, including Everest, with no other oxygen.
Well, she's crazy and she's a freak in nature.
Yeah.
What's really weird is they have this website that lists where because there are people that have died. Hundreds of people have died climbing, Mount Everest, and their bodies, a lot of them can't be taken back. They're frozen and hot.
You climb over the dead there.
Right. So there are markers, and there's a site that's got red dots showing you where every body has been discovered on the mountain, and it's crazy because there's dots all over the place.
No thanks. No thanks. I'm
Yeah,
done.
no, and that's your final resting spot.
They said it. Billy.
Horst Mohlmann, the Philadelphia Eagles' German-born kicker, on why he's not sure U.S. pro football will ever go to Europe. It's hard to understand what's going on. Do you think that stood the test of time?
That's true.
The NFL have a really good idea, and I'm gonna call New York that they should have games like in London and in Germany and Dublin, Ireland. They should do that,
Mexico City, Belize, do it all, man.
Good idea. Nice.
Yeah.
Like the way you think, Mark.
Who knew?
Mark, Steve Busby, what'd he say?
Well, Steve Busby says, I throw the ball harder than Nolan Ryan. It just doesn't get there as fast. So it's all about semantics.
Yep. Steve Busby was a good pitcher.
He was. He hit the Tigers.
Didn't he have 2 no-hitters?
You might have.
And you look back at that rotation at Kansas City. Dennis Leonard, Larry Gura, Steve Busby, Paul Splittorff. They had a good team.
They really did. Yep. No question. That gets us to our cover story. Tim Shaw, the article is called Polishing Off Their Rivals. He's a U.S. swimmer, and they're in a meet in Colombia that was dominated by the East German women. The 17-year-old Shaw, however, was the star of the meet. He wins 3 events, the 200, the 400, and the 1500-meter freestyle. But as often is the case, it's the one he didn't win that caused the most consternation. It's the 800-meter freestyle consisting of Robin Backus, Jim Montgomery Shaw, and Bruce Furness. And Billy, what happened?
Well, they get to the furnace, I believe was the third guy.
No, he's the anchor.
The anchor, excuse me.
Yeah.
He jumped off the pad and reached the pool before he was supposed to. He jumped off too early. So they were disqualified, even though they were actually beating the Germans by quite a margin. So they were disqualified and lost. Furness, after that, was completely broken up. I mean, he's beside himself. And it was Shaw, the one that actually calmed Furness down and said, hey, we're in this together. But Shaw and Furness would end up becoming huge rivals against each other as time went on.
Yeah, Furness went on to have just an unbelievable career. And you're right, this meet, Shaw kind of got the better of him. They were friends and roommates. It wasn't like they were, enemies or rivals yet, at least. They were kind of close. But Furness, like you said, leaves. And if you've ever seen that happen in a track meet or anything, when these guys leave, it's like a hair too early, And the weird thing is they were winning by 8 lengths.
Yeah.
It was a blowout. He didn't need to do that. But their coach, Ron Ballatori, all week long was saying how they were going to set a world record. We're going to set a world record. And that got into their heads.
Mm-hmm.
And instead of concentrating on just winning, they were concentrating on setting a record where every half a second counts. And sure enough, they would have set a world record, but instead they got disqualified. So that was a really tough one for this young kid, Furness, who fought back tears when he looked at it at replay. He said, I jumped, he conceded. I really blew it. Oh.
And these kids are, 17 years old in this article?
Yeah.
So they weren't didn't have the maturity of an adult to be able to understand. I'm surprised that didn't crush him, but he went on to obviously have a great career. But boy, that's rough, man.
Then did you have a lengthy conversation with Furness?
I did. And he said, he goes, I know you're going to want to talk about, that situation. You do. I mean, that's one of his key things in swimming. But the thing is if you start looking at his career, Furness turned out to be a 2-time gold medalist in the Olympics. He's Mr. USC. He won. His whole family is all swimmers and all amazing swimmers. So this didn't stop Furness. All it did was, no pun intended, it lit the fire to him. It lit the fire in the furnace.
And, we tried to get Tim Shaw on the show, but he is supposedly a bit of a recluse. So we had no luck there, but I think Furness is coming on in a few weeks.
Yes. And the other thing, you read about Tim Shaw. Tim Shaw's a young guy, and they're comparing him because he won, like Scott said, the 200, 400, and 15 meter. They were comparing him to Mark Spitz.
Mm-hmm.
That is a lot of pressure to put on these kids. I mean, Mark Spitz was the face of the world back in those days.
He medaled silver twice at the Olympics. The first time in 76 was for swimming, the 400-meter freestyle. But in 84, he won a gold medal playing water polo. And he's actually inducted into the Swimming Hall of Fame and the USA Water Polo Hall of Fame.
Yeah, so Mark, you're right. We tried, Bill tried, Mark tried, I tried. We all tried to get Tim Shaw, but as it turns out, he doesn't enjoy doing these things, and that's fine. We found that out. We found out that like USA Water Polo was trying to get like an exhibition match back together, and he didn't answer them. He doesn't answer anyone apparently, and that's totally his prerogative. That being said, that led us to Bruce Furness. Billy tracked him down, and we will talk with one of the all-time great USA swimmers next month when there's an article featured on Mr. Furness. He's in a zone all his own. Greg Lazinski was one of the most feared sluggers of the 70s. His breakout season was in 73, but an injury-plagued season in 74 kind of had people wondering if he could do it again. The answer was yes, and then some. At the time of the article, he leads the majors in HRs with 26, RBIs with 84, and despite his physique, this guy was a true hitter, not just a slugger, and his best years were 75 through 78, an all-star and a middle of the order bat for those really good Phillies teams. Greg the Bull Lazinski, what a great name from the 70s.
His if you look from, you said 75 to 78, he averaged 32 home runs and 111 RBI. He finished second in the MVP voting in 1975 and 1977. He helped the Phillies when they got to the World Series in 1980, and this is what surprised me. Greg Luzinski, after the 1980 World Series, the Phillies just sold him to the White Sox.
Yeah.
No players acquired, just sold him off. Here's a guy that had great years, and they just said, "Yeah, no one wants you." That's amazing. But he still is outside. He's got a Bulls barbecue outside Citizens Bank Park if you want to go meet him.
In Philly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right outside the stadium every day.
1975 was a start of a great trend for him. He made the All-Star team, and for the next 4 years, he would make the All-Star game, 75, 76, 77, and 70. And he finished with 307 home runs. He won a World Series championship in 1980, his last year, I believe, with the Phils. And then he played for the Sox after that.
And he had good years with them too.
Right. The Bull, as he was called, because he looked like one, stocky, muscular.
I just don't understand those years where guys do well and you just sell them. Nowadays, you'd get a good premium for a guy like Greg Luzinski.
Yeah, yeah. Well, money back then was just, and if they thought he was done, I don't know why they would, but, and like you said, went to Chicago and had a couple good years with them. I remember him being in Chicago wearing those shorts, one time.
Yep.
From the Bull to the Great American Elephant Hunt. Billy, what's this all about?
Oh, this is about Lily and Isa. They're two Indian elephants. They stand 4.5 feet high and weigh about 1,500 pounds. Well, they escaped the circus and ran out to the Hugo Lake Reservoir. And so far, I looked this up. As of 2017, the elephants are still around. They're still there. They are alive and residing in the Endangered Ark Foundation, a sanctuary in Hugo, Oklahoma.
Wow.
So they never really found them. The article says, we thought they were in the weeds, they get away. So they couldn't find these elephants in Oklahoma. So they're now just on a foundation or Endangered Ark Foundation.
You would think that one of the easier things to find would be elephants, but
yes,
what do I know?
Yeah, and that's quite a good detectives out there that are running that place.
Right.
Wild elephants live 3 times as long on average when they're not in captivity, usually around 56 years. But the oldest elephant was an Asian elephant who lived to be around 100 years old.
Wow.
Yeah. And she just passed away earlier this month.
Some guy who did get back to us is Kirkpatrick, who's been on the show how many times, Billy? 3 times?
Yeah, I think he's going to be our first 4-time guest.
Yeah, because he wrote
Bob Ryan's been 3 times.
And
right.
Curry.
Curry's been 3 times.
Yeah. Kirkpatrick.
And Farmer's been 2.
Who was a longtime writer for Sports Illustrated, and he wrote an article this week called "They've Stepped Way Over the Line." Bill, this is about softball.
Softball? I don't know anything about softball. Sorry, Joe Creedy. That was my best imitation.
Not really softball, but as Curry writes, as over the line tournament that combined beaches, softball, bikinis, and lots of drinking.
Surprising.
And a little bit of athletic ability. The tournament is run by Old Mission Beach Athletic Club. Its director, Mike Kern, who asked, I get the impression you're looking for wild stuff. Well, we're not a bunch of buffoons conducting an orgy. This is an athletic event. I imagine that Curry's going to point that that's not exactly true when he joins us in just a little bit.
I played over the line, and it's really, you can play it on asphalt, but in the sand and the beach, that's the best place to play it. And it's a really interesting sport because it's like 3 players, and you're trying to hit the ball fair without it being caught. So you have an outfielder, like an infielder, and sort of a pitcher.
Don't you only have like 3 people that can okay.
Yeah, it's like a 3-on-3.
What would have been fun? The finals, they're still going today. They're still going. The tournament still goes on in 2025. The finals were just a week ago, or July 19th. That would have been fun. If I would have known that, I would have tried to go down there just to see that, because that does look interesting.
It does, yeah. And
let me ask you guys a question. They had something called a Miss Emerson. Marcia Weir won it in 1975, but she won it because they came up to her and asked her a knock knock joke. Do you guys understand this knock knock joke? Let me read it. It says, knock knock, who's there? Emerson. Emerson who? Emerson sweet legs you got there, darling.
Emerson Sweet Legs.
That's a dad joke. And I looked that up. I said, where did that come from? I don't understand it. Oh, yeah. LA. Oh, them are some sweet legs you got there. Okay. Emerson
Oh,
sweet
instead of
legs.
Emerson.
Okay, I get it
You
now.
got to really think about it.
I had to read it to you before I understood it. Okay. Yeah.
I mean, one of the players there, they have like these short shorts, and they're called the mistresses.
Yes.
I mean, we don't.
And who are they sponsored by, Mark?
What?
Who are they sponsored by?
You tell me.
Padre first baseman Willie McCovey. Just a fun story.
Yeah.
Right.
The director, Curran, a 5-time winner of the OTL tournament and a land surveyor in real life, he subsequently was observed in a state of near derangement, attempting to crawl through a dog door about 10 inches square. And that seemed to be par for the course. That's the director of the tournament who's so inebriated that he's trying to crawl through a dog door. So sounds like
Haven't we all?
A lot of good stories there.
Yes. And there's also the guy that they said he helped invent the game. What is it, 1952? Royal and Debbie Clark. They're just a May to December couple. And Royal seems like quite the interesting guy. They said he ate bacon, left in his van for 2 weeks, and he was sick, surprisingly. And his nickname, I guess it fits him. They call him Weasel. Yeah.
I mean, I love the names of some teams, like the Healing Scab.
Yes.
Sophomore favorites, the Flying Pimento Brothers, the Sky.
What about your favorite, Mark? Come on, get to it. Winkin', blinkin',
Blinkin' and nude.
Oh,
Winkin', blinkin', and nude. That does describe me.
They said the general rule is the better the team, the less gross the name. So the fart monsters, I guess, aren't in there.
Curry Kirkpatrick wrote that article on the over-the-line players and their shenanigans, and the veteran Sports Illustrated writer whose other claim to fame is being the first 4-time guest here on the Past Star Prime podcast joins us now to talk about the goings-on at this quote-unquote softball tournament and maybe some stuff that didn't quite get in the article. Hey, Curry, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you. I will say this article was written in 1975. That's when I did Over the Line, and it's still going on. It's bigger and better than ever. It's still going on, and it started in the 50s, and I didn't know anything about it. But just one thing I wanted to say about this article: there is no way that I'd be able to write this article in today's environment. There's no way. Not a chance. Sports Illustrated would allow the stuff that we got in this article in these days. So, yeah.
We're reading this, and it's pretty bonkers. What do you recall from your time there covering this event?
Well, until you guys called me about this, I hadn't thought of it in years, but but then when I remember so many details about doing this thing. I didn't even know about Over the Line. I had a friend in San Diego that the previous summer that had told me about this thing, and we went out to see it, and thousands and thousands of people were not just in it, playing in it, but watching it. And so I said, I got to do this. So I met a couple people there, and I came back the following year. So it took a year for me to, figure out how to do this. And I don't know how I talked the magazine into letting me write this, but I went back the next year, which was 75, and, went out a week ahead of time and met all these characters that ran it and didn't run it and, were, quote, founding members and were officials of something called the Old Mission Beach Athletic Club, which were these guys that formed this club to, I guess, get the money to get Over the Line started and then pursued it for years and years. And I met all these characters. And not only did I had a great privilege of writing it, but my photographer on this story was a guy named Ken Reagan. And I don't know if you know who that is, but Ken Reagan was a nationally famous photographer, and he covered everything. He covered everything from politics to rock and roll. He was the official photographer for the Rolling Stones tour about 5 years in a row. He then became the official photographer for Senator Ted Kennedy. He covered everything Kennedy did the last 4 decades of his life. But when I met him, he's just this little bearded guy. He looked like a rocker. And he had the most unbelievable stories, about the Stones and the Beatles and Rod Stewart and becoming Madonna, becoming friends with all these people. So I was just fascinated with Ken Reagan. And he was a wild man. I mean, he's a wild man, just like the over the line guys. So he loved doing this thing. I started to call it a tournament. It's a softball game. Have you explained what it was actually, what it had to do with sport?
I mean,
or should I do that?
We did our best from reading what you wrote, but I would love to get your take on what it really was.
Well, it basically was a softball game. They played it with a softball, and there's 3-person teams, men and women. Men could play with women. There was a women's division, and which was all women, and then there's different divisions of levels of play. I mean, really, and some really good athletes played in this thing. Guys from San Diego that had played professional baseball, and Willie McCovey played, and then he had a team in the thing. He had a team of girls, I remember. And it was basically a softball game, but you had your own pitcher who sort of kneeled beside the plate and tossed the ball, and then you hit it, quote, over the line. And the line was a cross the field line about 20 yards out. And there was no base running because, of course, there were no bases. So you just hit the ball, and you tried to hit either the other team was in the field, 3 defenders who could play anywhere in this field, which sort of expanded like a huge, not a triangle, but it just went out beyond where you could hit the ball. And there were 2 kinds of hits, singles and home runs. A home run went beyond where any of the fielders were. Very few of those were hit because, of course, the fielders played way out there. And then singles were balls that got through on the bounce or on the fly. Outs were made by you had to catch the ball on the fly to make an out. And gloves were not permitted. There were no gloves except for the girls. The girls got to wear gloves, but the guys didn't wear any gloves. And there were some, terrific. Of course, there were levels of the game. I mean, there were to tell you how many. I think there was it 2,000 players in the event that I went to in '75. It was played over 2 days of games, so you can imagine how many people. And now, I think it's played over 4 weekends now. It was 1 weekend then. That was how big it has gotten now. But as I said, so that was the game. And as I said, you had some teams that were just drunken brawlers that were out there, had no business knowing what to do with the bat or the ball. And then there was teams on the other level that were really high quality, guys that could hit and field. But the main point of the game was just, drinking and having fun. Ken Reagan's opening photo, which was a 2-page photo spread of this over the line tournament, showed a batter and the fielders, and the rest of the photo was nothing but mobs of people. I mean, It looked like thousands and thousands of people were surrounding the sand. And of course, this thing got so big, they had to move. They started on a small beach at Mission Bay, and it just got so big, they moved the tournament from the beach. It finally they had to find hard surfaces to play the thing on because it got so big. I just wrote about, the characters and the fun people I met there and the fun, the crazy things they did. Absolutely crazy. Of course, they were denizens of the local bars and clubs there. And, which is just, I reread the article the other day. I remember I led the article with a guy who went by the name of Spinny Bunch. And his name was, he was about in his 40s. And he called himself Spinny Bunch because he always wore this little cap with a propeller on the top, on his head. And he would spin it, and sometimes it would spin off into the distance, and sometimes it would spin different ways. But, he always was afraid that if it spun a certain way, it would spin himself into the stand. I mean, this is a story and people that I met over the line.
Yeah, you seem to really try and make a point that the guys running the tournament thought of themselves as athletes, and you mentioned some of them were, but at the same time, they're also crawling through drug doors, and I mean, they're obviously quite inebriated. When did you think to yourself, my goodness, I have two different stories here. I've got guys who want to win a tournament, and I've got other people who, we may never see again.
Well, I didn't write about the tournament until basically the last few paragraphs of the thing. I mean, Sports Illustrated spread this thing over 5 pages. They had no idea what I was doing, and I came back and filed the story. And they had these tremendous pictures by Ken, of course, who took a lot of pictures of babes and the skimpiest bathing suits that they could find, and that was a big part of it. But as I said, Sports Illustrated devoted 5 pages to this thing, and most of the story, as I said, I wrote about the characters and had nothing to do with the quote tournament itself. I don't think I even got into that until the last few pages. But I remember one of the guys, I quoted him when I talked to him. When I was doing a story on this, people, I think it had made the newspaper, but just every year the newspaper would cover it, but just for the scores and who won the tournament, and not these maniacs that had invented it. And I'll quote you the one guy from the old Mission Bay Cub, which was called Ombak, that's the initials. Mm-hmm. And one of the directors, a guy named Mike Curran, and I started quote interviewing him, over beers at a bar. Well, I wasn't really interviewing; I was just talking to him, conversation. But he expressed, as I wrote this, he said he expressed skepticism about the publicity that this tournament was getting. He said, "Why are you doing this article?" He asked a reporter who was in the process of falling off a bar stool one evening in the Beachcomber, which is next door to the Pennant. Those were bars. And Mike Curran said, "I get the impression you're looking for wild stuff, but we're not a bunch of buffoons conducting an orgy. This is actually an athletic event." Well, I beg to differ.
On which part?
Yeah. But they were crazy. They had one. I don't know how much I can say here about this. They had a great. They had a great contest that one year they figured this out, that the girls, the both spectators and players, would show up in these incredible bikinis and even more incredible bodies. And so they had a contest that was called the Miss Emerson contest. And the winner would turn out to get the name of Miss Emerson. And I couldn't figure out what are they talking about? Why is it called Miss Emerson? And I'll just read what they told. Is that Miss Emerson was discovered 3 years ago when one of the directors asked a passing lady of astounding proportions if she was the elusive Emerson, and then told her an old knock-knock joke. when she answered Emerson who, the director provided the punchline. And the punchline was, let me see if I can clean this up, Emerson breasts.
Oh God.
Yes. We had to
So
read that.
that's the king.
We had to read that a few times over and have Billy explain it to us, but we finally got it. And you're right. You couldn't write that today.
And they changed it in
Yeah,
the non-doc joke. It
yeah.
used to be Emerson's sweet legs. You got. So I kept thinking, how
Oh,
did they?
there were
But you made it.
there was.
That's what they did.
I remember the over the line officers and directors didn't really like they looked askance at commercialism of this product. But for instance, at the event I was at that year, the Tin Man from the Wizard of Oz showed up on the field, and another there were several clowns, and there was one clown I remember, he called himself Jocko the Clown, but he was very upset because everybody kept calling him Bozo, and so I went up and interviewed. I interviewed him. He told me these people only know one clown name. It's another distressing example of our automated society. I mean, these guys had great lines. I just went up, talked to people, and they had all these funny lines. But as I say, there were so many things that I could not get in this story that are not in the story because I just couldn't put. There's no way there's no way Sports Illustrated run them. I mean, as I said, it was amazing that I got certain stuff in that I did. But the stories I couldn't get in, the names of some of the teams were so obscene that I had to pick and choose and try to figure out which ones would get in. And so that was. I mean, it was just basically a story about a bunch of drunken guys who started this event, and it just expanded. As one of them told me, we've created a monster, and it expanded into this cultural San Diego, event, and it spread all along the West Coast in the years after I did the story, even down into Mexico. I think some of the Mexican towns had their own over the line tournaments.
I played over the line as a kid. I mean,
well, there you go.
And I remember it so well because it's really great to play it on sand as opposed to asphalt or something like that. And it's like a diamond with no outfield walls, and you have to hit the ball over the line. So you could dive into the sand or whatever and not get hurt.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But when you did this story, your concept of what the story would be, did it change dramatically from the end to when you first got the assignment?
Yeah, I think I went out thinking, I was going to do a story on the tournament and the players and their names and who was really good and who had the most hits and all that stuff. And I didn't, as I met these people and saw this thing going on, as I said, it was played over 2 weekends. So I had the first weekend to see what was going on and then meet all these characters. And then I spent a week with them. And I remember, not being sober a lot of the week. And then meeting Ken Reagan, the official photographer of the Rolling Stones. I had such a good time doing this thing. And you're right. My story just changed completely. It just became then a kind of a story on the characters that were running this thing.
They always say the end of July, beginning of August, they call it the dog days of summer, especially when it comes to baseball and major sports. So I would imagine, because Sports Illustrated was a magazine that covered all different kinds of things. What was like one of these dog days of summer, like assignments you got that was maybe the most fun for you? Was it over the line? Was it something else?
Well, yeah, I think you're saying, in July and August, the sports world is basically just baseball, right?
Right.
And nothing much else is going on. I'm trying to think of stories I did in those dead days. They were probably, I would do, a long feature story on an athlete or something else. I don't remember doing such a clown show though as Over the Line. I mean, there's very few things I ever did that were that fun and that over the moon, basically, And as I said, I had to figure out what I could get in and what wasn't going to make it. I think I told you guys about this in one of my other phone calls with you, that my only other story I can kind of compare to it is when I did a story on Morgana, the Kissing Bandit.
Mm-hmm.
And that never even made, I think I told you, I convinced the magazine I could go out and do the story, and it would be okay for a family magazine. But I came back and wrote it on Morgana, and there was no way the magazine could run it. And sure enough, they didn't. But in those days, it was much different. I was a staff writer, and we couldn't write for other magazines. But for some reason, one of the editors allowed me. I had a friend at Playboy magazine, and I told him about this story, and he wanted to look at it. He was an editor. He wanted to look at it. And he said, we want to run this thing. And so I got permission from Sports Illustrated to sell the story to Playboy. This is on Morgana, the Kissing Bandit. And of course, she was a stripper and in real life. And I don't remember if your audience remembers her, but she used to run out on the field and kiss all these celebrity ball players. And then she extended to basketball and football. She started with Pete Rose and ended up, going to jail several times, and but became a national celebrity.
Yep.
And she was a great gal. She's very bright, very intelligent, and she was married to this accountant who handled all her money. And I became a really good friend of Morgana's. And Playboy, I called her up and I said, Morgana, I got good news and bad news. I said, the bad news is that Sports Illustrated not going to run this story. And she said, well, what's the good news? I said, Playboy wants to run it. And they're coming out, they're going to call you up, and they're coming out to do a photo shoot. And so they did this incredible, nude photo shoot of her. And that would never have happened in Sports Illustrated. But that's the only thing that I can, come close to Over the Line.
Curry.
There were several Morgana type girls on Over the Line. I gotta tell you.
I mean, she was famous, at least that I remember her running out on the field kissing a bunch of guys. Everyone knows her name in this crowd.
Oh yeah.
But let me ask you, Curry, back to Over the Line. You said you met a bunch of characters. There's one that really stood out to me. Tell me about Royal Clark. This guy seems like an interesting guy when your nickname's Weasel.
Well, Royal was one of the he ran the T-shirt stand at the Overline tournament. So he was a San Diego native, about 40 years old, and I asked him what he did. He said he delivered laundry to the underwater demolition teams at the base. That's all he would reveal. And he was married to a 25-year-old beach star named Debbie, who everybody apparently, he'd been married to her for, probably 5-6 years when I came out. But he was just a Sun guy, and he won the thing. I think he won the Overline team. His team had won it maybe 10 years before and had never gotten back to the finals. So one of the stories they told me about, sources claimed that he was the one that could detail the history of Over the Line for me, but only if contacted before 6 p.m. Inasmuch as I wrote, inasmuch as he is rumored to sip a cocktail or two and is somewhat incoherent past that time. and I said the sources are wrong by about an hour. But he so, so so he gave me, he was a great character. He gave me a lot of the history of OTL. He told me how it was, what it was exactly. I also met a guy who was one of the originators, and is a guy named Ron LaPolice, and he is rumored to have stepped off the court when they couldn't find a volleyball, when all the courts at Old Mission Beach, the volleyball courts were so crowded they couldn't play volleyball. He's rumored to step off the court and invented over the line.
Huh.
And I never met Ron Police, but they basically measured the boundaries of the width of over the line. The width just expanded and expanded. So, and the steps were measured in what they called La Police steps. So, he was, I said he was discovered recently. He was a founder, but he'd gone on to much lesser things. I said he was discovered recently laying tile at the Pennant, which was an establishment that features a special Tuesday night spaghetti dinner for 19 cents. I don't remember meeting Ron Police, but he did tell his fellow, when they found out Sports Illustrated was doing a story on his baby, he said, "I've created a monster."
Mm-hmm.
Yes, it's that to go.
But I was reading through the article, and you talked about there's rules to this game, but one of them is you can't disrobe completely on the playing field. Was there actually that going on? And do you have a story about that?
At the tournament I was that year, I didn't come across any disrobing, but now remember, this tournament was played on about 18 different courts. So Ken Reagan and I couldn't cover every court, and I heard about all kinds of mooning and disrobing out on some of the courts, and I'm not sure the culprits were thrown out, though. I think they were allowed to continue.
Too funny. That is too funny. Curry, let me ask you this. Were the police ever involved? And if not, should they have been?
I wrote in the story, I think, that there were, as far as I know, this was, as I said, this was in 75. So it'd been going on. I think I was at the 22nd annual one. And this is what, 50 years ago from when we're talking. So, but in the first 22 years, this was, I think, the 23rd I was at, they told me there had never been an arrest made. So you'd think there'd be a lot of fighting and stuff, going on because of the drinking and the alcohol, and guys making, as you say, diving into the sand and making a catch or not. But the serious players they were real serious about this game. I mean, they wanted to win the tournament, and they were fields, and a lot of money was being bet. And so I was astounded there weren't more, altercations, leading to fights. There were tons of cops around, but they were all like enjoying it, watching it, and having fun. And I never saw a fight when I was there. And as I said, I don't remember what the arrest was for, but that's what they told me. There was just one in all those years.
Now, Curry, you have done some amazing things. You've obviously interviewed supermodels. You've covered college basketball. You've been to major tennis events. Was there ever a chance you're out at this volleyball tournament and you go, what the hell did I do?
You mean to get the assignment?
Yes, to be all of a sudden you're out at a thing where everything you've done, they go, put Curry on it.
Oh, Well, no, I brought this story to them.
Okay.
Sports Illustrated didn't know about the line. Yeah, I gave them, and that happened a lot. I mean, I would come up with stories, as all of us would. There were some assignments that I got that were, as you say, plum assignments. I did a lot of stories on celebrity athletes, but no, I came up with this one myself.
That's awesome. They got to send you back, Curry, because it still goes on. The finals were just a week ago, 2 weeks ago.
Well, I know, and some of these guys are still involved in OMBAC, and I have a standing invitation to come back. Of course, I got it way back then, so I can come back and write about it and get a media pass whenever I want.
You can judge the Miss Emerson contest.
Yeah, really. That'd be a plum assignment. Excuse the expression.
You need to do a follow-up 50 years later. Where are they now?
Yeah.
So hey, it's time.
Well, if you notice Ken Reagan's pictures, the winner of Miss Emerson was quite a babe.
Yes.
We got her. We got her in there.
Yeah, she's now in her 90s.
Yeah.
Tell me that. I know.
Sorry, the image has got to me.
Well, let me quote. I'm going to quote since I brought her up. Her name was Marcia Weir, and she claimed to be ignorant of the competition. She just walked along the beach with her gorgeous body and her brief bathing suit. But she won the thing, and she said of her award-winning moment, "All of a sudden, I found myself surrounded by people gasping, screaming, and pointing at my shirt." Well, she didn't have a shirt in the photos we took of her. Where was asked if she earned all 10 from the judges. She said, "Heck no, I got several 11s." So she went along with it.
She played with it, yeah. Good for her.
So it's that time again where we do the 50-50, give you a 50% chance of getting a trivia question. And since our theme is over the line, I was trying to figure out what kind of trivia question could I possibly come up to talk about over the line. I mean, there was a song, One Toed Over the Line, but that just doesn't work. So here's your trivia question. In 1989, there was an episode of the television series Miami Vice called Over the Line about corrupt cops. 4 years later, there was a movie that came out called Over the Line, starring Leslie Ann Downs, about an obsessive prison inmate and the affair he has with a lady in prison. It got a 4-2. It couldn't have been very good. So here's my question to you. True or false? Don Johnson was in both pictures, the Miami Vice episode and this movie Over the Line.
Well, that is so amazing. I've got to say it's true.
No, it's false. There is one actor who was in both of these projects.
Totally tricked me. You totally tricked me.
I did.
Scrooge.
Who was the inmate? Who played the
actors?
Who played
So the actor is a guy by the name of Tomas Arana, Tomasarana, and you're going to go, I've never heard of him. But if you saw him, you might recognize him. So he played the warden in the 1993 picture with the prison and the woman. And then he was I guess a corrupt cop or a rich guy who gets killed in the Miami Vice episode. But he has been a working actor. He is still working, and he's been working since the early 80s. I think he's got 125 credits.
So was he in the episode of Miami Vice?
Yep.
As well as the movie?
Yes, he was
as well as Over the Line.
He was, yes, both called Over the Line. He was the warden in the movie, and in the TV series, he played some character who gets shot by a cop because they probably knew he was going to spill the beans.
Well, you brought up my boy Don Johnson, so I got to tell you my story about Don Johnson. Okay?
No, please.
Well, I loved Miami Vice. I mean, he was a hero of mine. I thought he was spectacular, great. So I'm doing the Winter Olympics for CBS in Albertville, and I was working for both Sports Illustrated and CBS at the time, but I was doing features for CBS, and we were doing this sort of funny. I was doing features for the Late Show, the one that came on at 11:30, and so it was mostly humorous stuff we were trying to do, and so we figured out we were going to be searching for celebrities at the Olympics, and Vice President Quayle was there representing the White House at the Olympics. So he and his wife were there, and we got a hold of his people and said, "Look, Kirkpatrick's a CBS guy. He's going to come as Vice President Quayle's coming down on the slopes from the event. Kirkpatrick's going to come up and interview him. Just don't, it's a joke thing. We're just going to he's going to ask him a couple questions." So he said, "Great," so that's how I was able to approach him without getting tackled. I did this to Vice President Quayle and his wife, and Quayle told me, "Yeah, I think we saw Don Johnson and Melanie down at the figure skating. Should go down and talk about it." I said, "Oh, thank you very much." He went along with the joke, like he's no celebrity. We're looking for. So now we go down there and we get Johnson and Melanie are coming out from the skating, and I go up to him and he's bright lights at night and these bright lights are on. I go, "Don Johnson, Kirkpatrick, CBS. Listen, we're looking for celebrities. Have you seen any celebrities around here?" And he doesn't get it. He stares a hole in my head like, and he gets security. He gets the security guys to get this guy out of here. Get this guy out of here. Oh yeah, that was Don Johnson. What an a-hole.
Too funny.
What a way to ruin it. You love Don Johnson, and now he just, never meets
you.
Well, you know what?
Yeah, never meet your heroes.
Yep.
Right?
Well, you know what?
So
You might have
true.
caught him on a bad day too. You never know. Sometimes, the nicest guys in the world, you just catch them on a bad day, and vice versa.
Well, I'm telling you, Melanie looked over and laughed. She got the joke immediately.
Okay.
But he's looking at me like, "Who is this asshole? Get him out of here!" And he pushed me aside. He pushed me aside and got a security guy to get me, away from him.
Well, it's interesting. That was towards the end of Miami Vice, and I guess he's trying to, morph into the feature films and be a leading man. So maybe there was a lot of stress going on there,
Yeah, you know what?
Yeah,
there's one other possibility. He could be a jerk.
Yeah, thank you, Scott.
Yeah.
I think there's someone to say that.
Yeah, I'm not having Don Johnson on.
Not to mention Quayle reacted the same way. He didn't know what I was talking about, but his wife was laughing. She got the joke, but Quayle looked at me like, "What are you talking about? What are you talking about, celebrity?"
Maybe it's a guy thing.
Yeah, maybe they're a bunch of idiots. Hey, Curry, this was a crazy few days down in the Mission Bay Swimming Club or whatever the hell it was called. I'm just glad that you were sober enough to put a few words on paper, and 50 years later, we're still remembering talking about these. Well, I guess we won't call them buffoons because they asked us not to, but that seems to be seems to be the correct word. But hey, thanks for coming on the Past Our Prime podcast and sharing a little insight into that wild time in the summer of '75.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Moving on, let's talk a little MLB, shall we? Since he doesn't kid around, in May and June, the Reds went, get this, 41-9, equaling the best 50-game stretch in baseball history. The Reds trailed LA by 5 games on May 20th. Now they lead the Dodgers by 12.5 games. A 17.5 game turnaround in this division race is over. Too many stats to talk about during this hot streak, but Billy, tell me about their starting pitching.
We saw these guys, I think, on one of the covers of a Sports Illustrated. Jack Billingham, Don Gullett, and Clay Kirby, through that 50-game span, were 17-0. And reliever Will McInerney had a 1.15 ERA for 38 innings. You get that kind of pitching, yeah, I think you'll be doing pretty well.
Unbelievable. And the other thing, go ahead, Mark.
No, I was going to say that is impressive, but what's more impressive? The Reds going 41-9 during the middle of the season over 50 games, or the 1984 Tigers starting the season 35-5.
Oh,
You might
shocked
get the
at that
Tigers
team.
in there.
I'm
Shocked.
surprised he got the Tigers in there.
It really is, isn't it?
That is so weird. And
Yeah, I didn't see it.
they're known as the Big Red Machine, and the '84 Tigers are known as the '84 Tigers.
They're World Series champs, buddy.
Well, so are the
World
Reds.
Series champs.
It's funny though, you mentioned the starting pitching, Billy, because we really, when you think about this, the Big Red Machine, you think bench, Rose,
Bench,
Morgan,
yeah.
Foster, Perez. But did you know they were a great, and I mean great, fielding team? They have 4 Gold Glovers in Morgan, Bench, Concepcion, and outfielder Cesar Geronimo. At one point in the streak, they went 152 and a third innings without committing an error. That's over 2 weeks of games playing perfect defense.
Ooh.
This team had no weakness, none.
Yeah. And
So
I
they're the Big Red Machine.
Did you read that comment from Davey Lopes?
Yes.
I mean, I guess we wouldn't hear that nowadays. Davey Lopes says, "We have been destroyed psychologically by the way the Reds have been playing. I don't think we can catch them." Okay.
That's a team that went to the World Series the year before.
Yes.
It's the end of July. Now, granted, there are double-digit 12 games back of them, but he's basically saying, like, next.
Yeah.
And
But I'm saying no ball players would say that nowadays.
And they had a great team.
Yes.
Oh.
Dang.
What else is going on in baseball that week, Mark?
Well, Dave Kingman is what's going on. I mean, this guy was called the Towering Inferno because he was 6'6" and had a fiery temper. And he had a game, he had 2 homers and 6 RBIs against Houston. The man was just a hitting machine. He hit 442 homers in his career. He played for the Giants, the Mets when this issue came out, played for a whole bunch of teams. But the interesting thing I found about Kingman is everyone thinks of him as this big power hitter. But when he was at USC, he was also known as being a really good pitcher. So I think at one time it was like, are you going to be a pitcher or hitter? And he obviously made the right decision. But the other interesting thing about Kingman I found fascinating. In 1977, he played for 4 teams.
Yeah.
Angels.
In like a month.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Maybe played for the Angels for like 3 games.
I remember he towards the end of his career played for the A's and had a really good season. I want to say in 1984, it might have even been his last season, and he hit 35 home runs. I mean, so like he was not done as a player, but I think he just wore out his welcome too often, and that was it for Dave Kingman. An awesome light touch. Billy, this was a great story. I don't know how I hadn't seen this or heard about this. Maybe you guys did. But in June of 1975 at the Western Open in Chicago, the Merry Mechs, Lee Trevino, and 2 others were struck by lightning. What? The Canadian Open was playing with some bad weather, and the players were quite nervous about the lightning, especially Jerry Hurd, and with reason. He was one of the others given an electric jolt along with Trevino a few weeks back. And this really, we talk about Jack Nicklaus and all the great things, but Jack played it a little bit too close to the vest there with when it came to hiding from lightning.
Yeah, you don't normally try to hide under a tree, and I'm not saying he would have known that. I'm not sure if I would have known that in those days. But yeah, he hid under a tree before one homeowner came over and invited them in. So they got him out of there, fortunately, before he possibly could have been killed.
Now, do you believe in the saying that lightning never strikes twice?
I do.
Okay. Let's test it out. We're going to find a place. We're going to have a lightning bolt hit you and then see if it can hit you again.
Making sure I live through it, yeah.
Well, Billy, how many times did your grandmother get hit by lightning?
Once. She was
See?
on the phone in, I think it was Virginia, and she got struck by lightning when she was on the phone. And then that affected her for the rest of her life. We would go out and visit her in Ohio, and anytime it rained, she would send us all down to the basement. We all, no matter what, even if they didn't say there was a tornado or a lightning, as soon as it started raining, she'd go, okay, everybody, down to the basement. They had a ping pong table and stuff down there. So as kids, you're thinking, this is great. But you look back, that's how much being struck by lightning scared her, that it didn't make a difference. It could just start sprinkling. And she'd go, okay, everyone, grab your blankets. We're going downstairs. Or wait till it was done.
Well, I imagine you get lit up by a lightning bolt.
Yeah.
It might have an impact on you.
Yeah, Mark, I know I thought you were going to go when you said about being hit by lightning twice. There was they said the world record holder for lightning strikes was a 63-year-old Virginia park ranger who'd been hit 5 times.
Does he have white hair? Does he have like a
He
little like
must.
white
He
streak
said
on
he
it?
said the most severe blast came in a couple years in 1973 after he stepped out of a truck. It set my hat and hair on fire. Then it went down my arm and leg, knocked off my shoe, and crossed over to my right leg. It also set my undies on fire.
Well, you know, I mean,
That's
just think
nuts.
about it. It's not even the lightning that will kill you. Your heart is probably going, what
Yeah.
the hell? And just, I'm
Yep.
stopping.
Yep.
Tom Weiskopf won the tournament in a playoff over the Golden Bear, while Trevino, with the burns he suffered now healed, listen to that, finished 6th back, but he didn't seem to care. If I shoot a 77, I don't give a damn anymore. At least it doesn't upset me as much as it used to. Something like that is an experience you never forget. Emotionally, it shook me up. So yeah, I don't recall Lee Trevino being struck by lightning at all, but he survived it, went on to still do
Fortunately.
quite well. Designing women. Mary Jo Pepler. She is quite a character, arguably the best women's volleyball player in the world. And in 1990, she's inducted into the Volleyball Hall of Fame. But in 75, she's on the El Paso Sol. Startup leagues were huge in the 70s, and they had an International Volleyball Association, which was really just a handful of teams in the western portion of the country, not exactly very international. And men and women played on the team together. Mary Jo, one of the best, sometimes one of the more difficult. One official said she's a gifted athlete who can't be handled. But she was a great all-around athlete, Billy. She won the Women's Superstars competition in 1975.
She did. She was, I think she won one of the races and a rowing one. She was an athlete that I think was more misunderstood, because if you look back, she was going to coach the Olympic team. I think it was in 76, I believe, or maybe it was earlier than that, but they took her off it at the last moment, even though she was such a great coach. One of her teams had been like 24-1, and they took her off, said that she was hard to handle. But so she went on to fame and
Well,
fortune in the superstars. I think one of the gals we've talked about before, what was it? Not Mickey Andrews. What was her name?
Mickey King.
Mickey Keene. She beat her in that one.
Yep.
So yeah,
Well,
she was quite the athlete.
but you know, if you're
Rigby.
playing for the El Paso Soul, you're going to have problems, you know.
Exactly. And the thing is, she was down to earth in a lot of ways. She said when she plays, she was never looking to make a lot of money. She said, what's the difference between another $50,000 or $100,000 if you have enough to be comfortable? Which is, in this day and age, people would laugh her out of the room. But at that
Yeah.
point in time, nice to
You
know
know what the
someone who's played
difference is between 100,000 and 50,000?
20,000.
50,000.
Oh, damn it, that math.
Yeah. You said there'd be no math, right, Billy?
Yes, and now I proved it.
Right. She won the softball event. She threw the ball. Billy, she won the softball event?
Softball? I don't know anything about softball.
She threw the ball over 40 feet longer than the next. She walks away with a gigantic check of over $34,000. I mean, like you mentioned, Billy, the purse for what the LPGA winners was like $2,000, and here she wins this made-up competition for $34,000. So
And also put her on the map for a lot of people that had really never heard of her. I liked those superstar competitions because it did introduce you to people. There was also a gymnast. I looked it up yesterday. I forgot the gymnast, Kathy Rigby.
Right.
Was also in that as well. But Kathy Rigby was known.
Yes.
Mary Jo Pepler was not.
No.
Yep. I remember Kathy Rigby.
Yeah.
For the record. Go for it, Mark.
Well, there's a firing in baseball, and it's our favorite guy that we had a show talking about him, Billy Martin. The Texas Rangers have fired him. He's 47 years old. He had a year left on his 3-year deal. So, Martin has been fired by the Tigers, by the Twins, by the Rangers. But what Billy's always going to be remembered for is being the manager of the Yankees several times. So he's going to have a lot more jobs and a lot more firings in his future.
Yeah, he's probably known for two things: being a great manager and being fired everywhere he ever went. But Billy, who replaced him?
Frank Lucchese, who in the next year was beaten up by Lenny Randall. in the dugout with players and media watching. He was upset that his playing time was being taken away by Frank Lucchese, his manager, and so he out of nowhere just popped him 5 times. And
Oh.
had to drag him off. And then the weirdest thing is Randall beats him up. And then, you figured run into the clubhouse or something like that. No, he ran to center field to try to play catch. Just, like, my bad. Sorry, I punched the manager, beat him up, knocked him out. Anyone want to play Pepper?
Well, you know what? If you watch like the movies and when someone gets hit, it's all like stunt acting. It's all exaggerated.
Yeah.
You get really hit in the face. You don't like fly 5 feet in the air. You might not even go down, but it hurts like a mother.
Yes, it sure does.
Face, Mark.
Oh, yeah, I won't go into that.
Fluffy?
No, she pawed me in the face. Well, what do you have to say?
Jack McKeon is out in Kansas City, so Martin replaced Whitey Herzog when he got the job with the Rangers, and now Whitey will manage the Royals and go on to have a Hall of Fame managerial career. I got another one. Pro Football WFL, the league's second season opened in San Antonio with the Wings stinging the Charlotte Hornets 27-10 before a crowd of 12,248. But get this, Ron Waller, 42, coach of the WFL's Philadelphia Bell, he resigns from his job, citing a sense of futility after being informed that the team's first exhibition game drew a paid attendance of 2,614. In other words, he could see the writing on the wall. The league was in serious trouble, even with the likes of Zonka, Kick, and Warfield. So,
well, the other problem is they're having them play a basketball team. Why would the Charlotte Hornets agree to that?
I know.
Bad idea.
Oh,
Bad idea
yeah.
all around.
Kwame Brown all over again.
Faces in the crowd, Mark, as we wrap this one up, or as Dave Johnson would say.
And down the stretch they come.
Sounded just like him there, Mark.
And down the stretch they come. Dale McNamara is my story. 39 years old of Tulsa. She won an unprecedented 7th Oklahoma World State Amateur Golf title. Now, she's also the coach of the team, and Dale's background is really interesting. She began the women's golf program at Tulsa in 1974 as a volunteer coach and turned them into a national powerhouse. They won 4 national titles under her reign. She was named the National Coach of the Year in '85. Her team won like 8 of 13 tournaments. She was inducted into the National Collegiate Golf Hall of Fame in '88, coached her teams to over 60 tournament wins, and produced more than 25 first or second team All-Americans and a number of LPGA Tour players. So here's to you, Dale.
Nice job, Dale. Way to go. Billy, 19th hole.
This is from Peter Steinblum, or Steinblums, from San Mateo, California. Okay. He goes, I've never been a fan of Jimmy Connors, but after reading Arthur Ashe's article revealing his so-called secrets for beating Connors, I will gladly join the Connors fan club. Ashe uses his Wimbledon victory as an opportunity to chop up Connors. He writes that Connors has traded his soul, but one thing Connors has is guts. At Wimbledon, Connors reportedly played through most of his matches with a painful injury, which required more guts than Ashe needed to write the article. Connors wouldn't take cheap shots at anyone in the magazine. He lets his tennis speak for him. This reader believes Ashe will someday choke on his words, courtesy of Jimmy Connors.
Man, it's so funny to think, like, I went back and reread the article Ashe wrote, and yeah, he takes some shots at Connors from what I think some well-earned shots that Jimmy, Jimmy made no bones about the fact that he was not out there to make friends. And it's just so funny. People can read something and get a completely different perspective.
Yes, a completely different. I mean, the way it's going in that they're deciphering it as a, who the hell does this guy think he is? Where someone reads it and goes, no, Ashe is just saying this is what I had to do, and this is the way Connors is. I didn't see him do that stuff.
No.
But think about it. Our guest with Kirkpatrick. Remember what we said about Cheryl Teagues? Or was it
Cheryl Teagues.
Cheryl Teagues. That he wrote an article that he thought, no, I was being complimentary about how wonderful you are, but she took it in as, oh, you're just a hack job.
Right. He kept mentioning how beautiful she was, and he couldn't believe she was 40.
Yes.
And she was like, "What, have you never seen anyone who's 40 before?" And
Yeah.
yeah, too funny.
Yep.
Hey, Billy, before we say goodbye, tell all the good people where they can hear the show.
I shall, Scott. You can see our show on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, iHeartRadio. Please leave us a review or a comment, and most importantly, help us spread the word. Tell a friend, tell an enemy, tell everybody you can just to take a quick listen. Download it. That helps us in the long run. And also, don't forget that we're also on YouTube. We're also on TikTok. We're also on Facebook. And we're also on Instagram. So please look us up. Past Our Prime 50. Got a lot of places to look at what we do.
I'm on YouTube right now, and I'm going to Past Our Prime, and there it is.
I reset the YouTube page too, so it'll look very interesting.
Nice. Good. Nice work, boys. Until next week. Hey, we'll talk with all of you soon. For Mark, for Bill, I'm Scott. Thanks for listening to Past Our Prime.